I want to begin by paying my tribute and gratitude to the farmers who've gathered in Delhi and all over the country, because it was their protests in 1984 in Punjab that put me on the journey of trying to both understand agriculture in deeper ways, including now the links between agriculture, climate change, energy transitions, as well as look for alternatives that were not violent against the earth and had a central role for farmers, recognized their contributions. After all, it is the energy of the farmers who are today having to protest, who feed 1.3 billion people. It's their bodily energy. And I think part of what the fossil fuel transition did is make us forget about other energies. And because I'm an ecologist and because I'm trained in quantum theory, it's those other energies that have been my preoccupation, both in physics. Schrödinger wrote a book, What is Life? And he talked about the miracle of life as a negative energy process. Mechanical systems create a negative entropy process. Mechanical systems create entropy. And that is the root of pollution, climate change, dissipation. So in the process of writing my book, The Violence of the Green Revolution, I read everything that the chemical agriculture teaches. I read everything about how we came to be at the point where we were so dependent on chemicals. But I also read, what kind of agriculture did we do before the Green Revolution? And that's how we came across one tattered copy of Albert Howard's book, An Agricultural Testament. And it's a book on energy. And this is how he writes. By the way, for those, because I don't think the energy community is too aware of our history of agriculture, the British, of course, were treating India and the Americas as their colony for the empire, for cotton, and of course for opium. It was a raw material supply system, and they wanted to improve this production. So they sent Albert Howard, there was no agriculture discipline then, he was called the economic botanist, the top scientist of England, to India to improve Indian agriculture. He arrives in Pusa in Bihar, where the original Pusa Institute was to have been. And he and his wife find the soils are fertile. There are lots of insects and no pests. And he says, I cannot teach these people how to do agriculture. I must make the Indian peasant my professor. And he wrote a book called The Agricultural Testament. And in the Agricultural Testament, he says something very, very basic that is always forgotten in energy discussions. The energy for the machinery of growth is derived from the sun. The chlorophyll in the green leaf is the mechanism by which this energy is intercepted. The plant is thereby enabled to manufacture food, to synthesize carbohydrates and proteins from the water and other substances taken up by the roots and the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The efficiency of the green leaf is therefore of supreme importance. On it depends the food supply of the planet, our well-being and activities. There is no other source of energy and nutriment, which is the foundation. Without sunlight and the green leaf, our industries, our trade, our possessions would soon be useless. What is the forgetting of this? It's the fossil fuel trajectory riding on colonialism. Colonialism is 500 years old. As Shellam reminded us, the fossil age is 200-300 years old. The fossil age, of course, put colonialism on hormones. They were able to create an empire where they had to treat the labor of the Africans they caught as slaves as zero value. But it was energy. Without that cotton, the Lancashire and Manchester mills wouldn't have run. Without the indigo, through slavery, those mills wouldn't have been able to print and dye. But because of what I call the mechanistic reductionism, which is both a mindset, but also a way in which we define efficiency and productivity, all of this production by peasants of the world and slaves was treated as a miracle manufacture of the mills of Lancashire. And it wasn't by accident that Gandhi pulled out the charkha, because he wasn't just spinning cloth, he was spinning another worldview on energy, the dignity of labor. When he marched to Champaran to free the peasants who couldn't grow their own food, they were starving, they were naked. And he did the Champaran Satyagraha, 1917. It was to show that that fossil fuel driven colonialism was a slave system. And in fact, the farmers who are protesting today, as they protested in 1984, are protesting against the slavery, which has been woven around spins and stories of the miracle of fossil fuels. The next step was the age of oil, where IG Farben joined hands with Standard Oil to create the chemicals that allowed Hitler to gas people in the concentration camps. We forget Rockefeller's role in all of this, but there was a company called IG Farben Standard Oil. And at that point, Standard Oil was a monopoly. It was an antitrust law that broke it up into the Chevrons and the Exxons, etc., the names that we know today. But it's that age of petrochemicals that then gave us the agrochemical industry and the pharmaceutical industry, which is the same roots. And in a way, it's come back to its roots in IG Farben with Bayer buying up Monsanto. The next unjust, unsustainable energy transition is the imposition of the Green Revolution on India, which is a fossil fuel chemical revolution. And this was done in 1965-66 when we had a drought and slight increase in prices. No one was dying of famine. That is a fossil fuel fabrication. No one was dying of famine. The prices has increased. And the only thing was Lal Bahadur Shastri wanted to import wheat to stabilize the prices, just to stabilize the prices. And then he was told, sorry, we won't send you PL 480 rights unless you change your agriculture into chemicals. And then he died in Tashkent, mysteriously, and the pressure continued. My book on the violence of the Green Revolution has the full details of the pressure of that time. But since that time, I have been doing a lot of work, both creating alternatives, building Navdanya, but also the research that must necessarily go with this. And then linking it all to climate change, I realized in the lead up to Copenhagen, no one was talking about agriculture, even though industrial globalized farming was a big part of the destruction. And all the research was showing that industrial agriculture is actually a negative energy production system. So Pimentel has done brilliant work to show that it takes 10 kilocalories of exosomatic. Exosomatic is energy from outside. And there are two kinds of energy. Endosomatic, that's living systems generate a plant, a seed becomes a plant through endosomatic energy. I'm lifting my hand. This is endosomatic energy. I don't need fossil fuels to lift my hand. My amazing system is allowing my brain function to say, yeah, lift the hand. That is endosomatic. Exosomatic is the external energy that fossil fuels created. And sadly, we are so obsessed with external energy, we don't even look at the possibilities of endosomatic energy. So they talked about 10 kilocalories of exosomatic energy to produce 1 kilocalorie of food in the US. The remaining 9 kilocalories is pollution and waste and the greenhouse gas emissions. I could give you much more detail how if we eat directly our food, it's one thing you do a Kellogg's 450 gram of breakfast cereal, it uses 1,100, it gives you 1,000 kilocalories of food, but it has used 7,000 for processing. And if you add up all of this, this is the reason I wrote this book, Soil Not Oil. The missing piece in the climate and energy debate which is food and agriculture. And this missing piece is now being filled very, very fast by the very players who gave us the problem. So the figures at that time I was assessing was 45%. It's now 50% of all the greenhouse gas emissions come from an industrial globalized agriculture. In 91, if 65 was the beginning of the imposition of fossil fuel agriculture on India in the name of the Green Revolution, not green, not revolutionary, 91 is the beginning of the fossilization of trade. And with WTO rules, the globalization of increasing food miles. This is why we are eating food that is contributing more and more, both to species extinction, destruction of farmers' livelihoods, and climate change. Industrial agriculture production based on fossil fuels and chemicals derived from fossil fuels contributes 11 to 15%. And this data is from IPCC. Now, they don't usually show land use change as linked to agriculture, but what is the Amazon disappearing for? Growing GMO soya. What is the Indonesian rainforest disappearing for? Growing palm oil. And then you have processing and transport and packaging and retail, and all of this is being imposed under new laws of safety and hygiene. Just look at the amount of packaging we are creating around junk food. This is 15 to 20%. The Amazon forest destruction is 15 to 20%. And because you're basing your system on uniformity and long distance transport, waste is built into it. That's 4%. You add it all up, it's 50% of the climate problem for having shifted an endosomatic system of producing food to an exosomatic system of ruining food and not feeding the world, creating hunger. Right now, the protests really are about the accumulation of all of this destruction. And the farmers are fighting for their right to produce food, to use their bodies for labor. They don't want to be made disposable and dispensable. Now, there is a fifth reset taking place, a fifth energy transition, which is the colonial energy transition, the mechanical, mechanistic, industrial energy transition, and this is what's called the Great Reset. Now, interestingly, to set, if I put this phone here, I'm setting it. If I put a seed in the ground, I'm not setting it. The transitions of living systems are transitions. Like in quantum theory, all you have is transitions. You don't have things. In the mechanistic world, you have things, you have stuff. And because this whole reset written, I mean, I'm not having to think of something, COVID-19, the Great Reset by Klaus Schwab, just read it. Read where they want to go. And they want to lead the definition of this energy transition. But there's another person with his billions leading it. Bill Gates, he's become my new favorite person. My old favorite person was Monsanto, but my new favorite person is Bill Gates because he's the old Columbus, he's the old Monsanto. He's doing everything that has failed. And by the way, our dear Reliance has just given 15 million investment to Bill Gates' breakthrough energy ventures. Now, this is how they're thinking about transition. Now, Breakthrough Energy Ventures has actually financed lab breast milk as if a mother feeding her baby with breast milk is a climate problem. Or the farmers of Punjab growing wheat and rice to feed this nation. They're a climate problem. We must have farming without farmers is the new slogan. And Bill Gates has 14 patents on a fake burger, Impossible Burger. So they want a world where there's no farmers, there's no food, it's all in the lab. Agricultural produce becomes production of raw materials, of proteins and carbohydrates. It becomes feedstock for food factories. And the problem with the system is the energy is not being assessed. It's still an invisible energy footprint. A lot of people think, oh, digitalization of agriculture will reduce the energy footprint. Data traffic is responsible for half of digital technology's impact and 55% of its annual energy consumption. The energy consumption for the digital technologies is shooting up, and it's increasing by 25%. Cryptocurrencies is where they want to take us, but one cryptocurrency transaction takes more energy than an energy guzzling household in the Americas. Digital agriculture, they call it precision agriculture. No, having 500,000 data points on a farmer's field by mining the data of the farmer is not knowledge of how ecosystems work. It is not knowledge of agriculture. Data points are the new raw material, as Mr. Ambani said. Big data is the new oil. He's got the old oil, he wants the new oil. Now, the new oil has its own invisible footprint, and for the amazing network that is organizing this conference, I would request you to start looking at the energy footprint of digital technologies, as well as the political footprint of surveillance and control. Now, lever is one of the worst destroyers, and they have devastated Indonesia with the palm oil, and they are leading this transition. They're talking about reducing their footprint, their carbon footprint. And Bayer, I call them the poison cartel, the responsible for that 50% emissions. They're now saying we are the solution. Pesticides and Roundup is the solution. We actually did an experiment with the top soil ecologist in India, put Roundup on a plant, and then we measured the soil, 0 carbon, dead. Because it kills the plants. But look at the vocabulary that's being created. The vocabulary of net zero. What is net zero? When a company or a country says it will be net zero, that means it will not produce any greenhouse gases, but if it can't stop producing them, it will affect, it will engage in transactions of using, of dealing, it's basically pollution trade. And my worry is I've seen this happen again and again and again, where now they want to police the farmer for the carbon in the soil. And I had a debate once where I said, farmers are already burdened too much. And they said, well, the farmers are earning nothing. Farmers are protesting in Delhi because the prices are collapsing because of liberalization and deregulated commerce. And the 3 bills are precisely about that. And part of the unjust transition is let the farmers earn 0 for the food they grow. But if they trade with a polluter, we will pay them a little bit. This is injustice. It is turning our annadatas, our farmers, into carbon slaves for the billionaires and the corporations. If you look at how few they are, it was mentioned in terms of, it was mentioned in terms of how concentrated even the renewable energy system is. But the concentration right now is Bill Gates wants one agriculture for the world. If you all want to see this, please read our report, The Gates to a Global Empire. One agriculture for the world. He's linked to Bayer. They call it precision farming, but it's not precise at all. If I started to give you the data of how wrong Monsanto's digital farming went and how wrong their, data points don't make a system that is a living system. So let me conclude with coming back to the living system, the endosomatic energy. This is what we've done in Navdanya for the last 30 years. And the amazing thing is, if you return organic matter to the soil, a very small fraction of what the endosomatic system has produced anyway of a tiny seed becoming a plant, let me share you this data. You don't need to hand over our agriculture to these racketeers, the World Economic Forums, the Bill Gates, the buyers, the levers. Just by doing the right kind of farming, the organic matter has gone down 14% in chemical soils on organic farms in Doon Valley, 99% increase. Nitrogen with urea has gone down 22%, up 100%. And then they want to force feed fortified food, but the iron has gone down 12% in chemicals. Food. Zinc has gone down 37%. You have a fossil fuel-based agriculture that is creating nutritionally empty food. And then you want to give more businesses to fortify and make it mandatory. This, in my view, is the new imperialism. And again, I want to say our wonderful farmers are showing the way how this country, 1857, the first corporation of the World East India Company conquered us. 1857, the peasants rose and threw them out. Green Revolution, it was the peasants who rose to say we are living like slaves. Now they're rising. Let's support them tomorrow. Let's stand with them. Thank you.